welcome to another Zelda podcast. I'm David, your host for this episode. I am not with my regular co-host Katie today.
Nope.
I am instead, a wonderful impression of Katie there,
Thanks.
TC.
Fooled
I am
you
instead
all.
here with the cast of Studio Demands It, another 6-5 show. I know, kind of cool to say it that way, right?
Yeah.
TC DeWitt, how are you? You've certainly been on the show before. Our listeners are familiar with you.
I am happy to be back. This is great. Thanks for letting me do our annual crossover once again.
The annual crossover is so cool. We've had a bit of a theme in almost an anthology series where we have this kind, well, not anthology, but anyways, the Excuse Me Princess episodes is what we've been doing. We've been doing it for.
Excuse me, princess.
Did you hear about our? We got some listener feedback after that first episode where people were freaking out. They thought that you totally nailed the Excuse Me.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome.
We were getting a lot of commentary on our Discord about that. People love your Excuse Me. TC, thank you so much. And also, we have a very special situation. The first two times we did our Excuse Me Princess episodes, it was just you and I. And then we got lucky. There was just a joining of schedules. And the most recent one, or maybe it was two back, I'm starting to forget now, Dan from Fanfiction was able to join with us. And the three of us watched a couple episodes and talked. But this time, we have your other co-host from Studio Demands It here.
My better half.
Mr. Jim Burzelic. Jim, how are you?
It's me. I'm good.
This is your first time on AZP. Thank you for being here. I'm so
excited.
excited.
It feels amazing.
Let's see. The two of you have come into the city. We've made a bunch of different podcasts. You've gone on a couple adventures. We've had various different kinds of pizzas. We've had Chicago style and New York style. A plethora of pizza here. We've been hanging out. We're going to hang out tonight a little bit. Y'all met my co-host Katie just last night.
That's why I was able to do such an accurate impression of her.
That's what it was. I thought she was here. Actually, I got a little confused.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so thank you so much for. I don't think there's another Zelda podcast listener that doesn't know what Studio Demands It is, just because we talk about it so much and there's so many ads. But we also have had a lot of new listeners this season. So for some of the new people, and maybe just for some of the people that have been hearing the ads and just need an extra little push to go check out the show, what the heck is the Studio Demands It?
Thank you for asking. Go ahead, Jim.
It's our podcast.
Nailed it. So this week we're gonna
Wait a minute. I recognize that guy's voice. I've skipped that ad so many times.
We have a low skip rate. It only drops down about 10% during the ads, by the way.
Aw, sweethearts.
Excellent.
Well, there's all those wonderful jokes you guys bring
Appreciate
to the low. What else we got for him, Jim? We got Frozen 2. And actually, it's funny when you recorded it, Frozen 2 hadn't come out yet, so no, but it's still in the ad. But it's okay, whatever, it doesn't matter.
So Studio Demands It is a podcast where we do I start with we or what you do? Where you, the audience, send in demands for movies. Basically, we are writers, and we think we can. I'm basically just trying to do your
doing
intro.
great.
No, I am fumbling right.
I'll help you a bit. The two of you are real world writers in California, screenwriters and the like, and you certainly have other skills as well. But as screenwriters, I think you have some fun with the show, and you take these ridiculous pitches. The pitches usually come from the audience, actually always come from the audience. And within the course,
95% have come from the audience. Some of them have come from each
Every
other.
once in a while.
Fair enough.
Yeah, let's see you do this.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But then within about an hour and a half, the two of you pitch an entire 3-act script, a whole concept of this, what could feel like an impossible pitch, just terrible ideas for movies. And as an exercise in screenwriting, the two of you try to come through.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a screenwriting show at its core, and it comes from Jim and I being massive cinephiles and writers ourselves, and we just talk. We see films and then question, well, why did they do that? Well, what would we do? Which is basic lunchroom conversation that everyone has.
Everyone has like I wanted it to be this or that, or they should have done this, and it all kind of came out of, well, clearly somebody had a different idea, a studio demand, and that demand won out, so they had to do it this way, knowing that you have to do certain things that you may not like. How do you craft a movie incorporating these bad obstacles while still making it good and fun?
Yeah, one of the standouts was like The Rock 2, but you still had to have Sean Connery in it or something.
Oh God, going back to season 1. Yeah.
That was a classic one. I wasn't planning on this, but TC, I remember the phone call, let's say. It might have been a FaceTime or a video call. The phone call where you kind of pitched the idea Studio Demands It to me in those really, really early days of 6-5. But I've never asked you this, and since you're both here, what was that conversation like between the two of you coming up with the idea for the show?
Jim started
Kinda,
it.
Yeah,
really.
It was So we were
the origin of the show.
Yeah,
Here we go. Yeah.
We were hanging out watching, and TC put on Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yes.
Okay.
And the whole time, actually, at first, the reason he put it on is because we were complaining about it, and he was complaining. He's like, "I hate this movie. I hate that they decided to do this and this. I would never do that." And like, and so I said, "Well, okay, TC, but clearly that's what I keep bumping the mic.
It's okay.
Clearly that's what they were gonna do. So
someone told them.
Someone told them you have to do Khan. That's clearly the most popular thing. It's not that J.J. Abrams was like, "Oh, I must do this. No one will stand in my way." Or maybe it was, but it really seemed like it wasn't. Like somebody at Paramount said, "Do this story next," or even if they didn't, that's what Paramount would tell TC if he were put in charge of making Star Trek Into Darkness. "Hey, TC, do a Khan story." And so now you have to incorporate that. So then he spent the next 2 hours,
the whole movie,
while watching the movie, describing how he would incorporate this idea he hated into the center of a movie that he's trying to love.
And I should say earlier I said terrible pitches, but really like challenging pitches that are somewhat terrible on purpose. They're like challenging on purpose, you know?
Yeah.
And so we spent the movie was like the credits were rolling, and we had this great hypothetical conversation. This conversation about this hypothetical crafting the beats of the screenplay or whatnot. And as the credits are rolling, Jim, you turned to me and said, "Could this be a show?
Yeah.
Is this a thing? Did we just come up with a thing?"
Like you both are just sitting on the couch together, and that
literally in the living room. I remember exactly where we were sitting at the time.
At this point, had I reached out to you saying like, "Hey, TC, you got any ideas?"
No.
Okay.
You hadn't reached out to me yet.
I don't know that that's necessarily true, because I know it wasn't like incessant, but like for the like 2 months previous, something like that, you had been talking about like doing a podcast. Like, what could we do?
Yeah, maybe
I was
had.
very averse to it, because I was like every idea that was kind of coming out was like, we're gonna exhaust that so fast. That's gonna be like 3 episodes of a thing, and then I won't have anything to say anymore. So like.
Oh, sorry. Yes, pardon me.
Well, no, I this is how I talk. I just kind of peter out. So I was shooting all these ideas down, but that idea, like, we fixed quote unquote Star Trek.
Yeah.
We'd talk like this all the time.
We could
easily talk like this on mic.
So this is starting to come back to me now. I actually remember what's going on here. I think I reached out to you for TC kind of vaguely at first, just basically saying like, I got an idea. I got an idea to make a production company where all the shows are going to support each other and blah, 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 blah. And we were my first pitch to TC was like, "Hey, you know that one other project you were working on? What about if it's something like that?" And we kind of went back and forth just a little bit. It was like on the burner. And I actually remember the conversation now. You came to me and you said, "Well, actually, there's kind of this podcast idea that I've been tossing around."
Yes.
And it was probably because the two of you, it was probably those 2 months' time where that was starting to come together.
Yeah.
I'm realizing.
And not only is Jim correct in that this is evergreen territory, because there's an endless amount of movies for us to be pointed at and do something with. We even did, I had done the Rewatchman podcast for 5 years or so, and I had a rule about anytime I started a project that was going to be a podcast or a YouTube series or whatnot, which was I would set a certain number before I started actually pushing it. Like, let's see if we have the wherewithal to do 10 episodes.
So you would like actually produce 10 before publishing, kind
right?
of thing?
Well, even if I published it, I wouldn't like start talking to people about it, because I wouldn't want to be like, "I got a new show," and then episode 3 is the last one.
Got it.
With Studio Demands, it was let's see if we can do it, and let's see what comes of it. So we did it. You said, "Well, do an episode 0."
Yep.
Episode 0 is episode 1. It's Die Hard, and
it was a great episode.
Yeah,
that was that episode. I listened to that episode and I was like, "Yeah, this is a show. This works. This is great."
Yeah, and just right from the get, and we've just recently hit our 100th episode in season 5 here, which was such a monumental, wonderful, beautiful thing. And looking back at the history of the show, it became itself pretty much immediately.
Yeah,
it has evolved in tiny ways. We have found a way to, and we don't have to keep going on too much about our show because people are here to talk about Zelda.
No, it's fine.
But something that Jim and we don't want to trash films just to trash them. We don't hate movies just to hate them. And we know the difficulty of producing a film. So we don't come in with too much cynicism. I don't think we that's definitely not cynicism forward.
Well, no, I agree with you. I see where you're going with that too, because it's not one of the things I'm trying to do with the 6-5 production company is find ways to celebrate things.
Yes, and that's
can we celebrate a video game? Can we celebrate screenwriting? Can we celebrate some quirky engineering thing? Can we celebrate Pokemon? Can we celebrate all the celebration? Yes, it's okay to have a critical eye sometimes, and sometimes you need to do that.
Yes,
and it's interesting with your show because I remember in the early days us talking about it, and I said I really want to stay away from like toxic fandom. It's real easy.
Not easy with some of the IPs we tackle.
Well, right, but I think you guys do it with tact. And I remember there was like maybe the 5th or 6th episode. There was one time where I sent you a note and I was like, loved it. It was just scraping. So just keep that dialed in.
Every now and then we will get close to spending too much time criticizing. Whatever.
But the point I wanted like to finish making is that then right there on a dime, you had such control over the show and the premise of the show. It was like, okay, cool. We just polish it a little bit this way or that way. And it's just been fantastic.
It's thank you. And it's never, it's the way I approach it. It's never, look at these idiots. What did they do? It's, well, what would we do?
What would we do?
Yeah.
And sometimes, even when you do, sometimes your demands that come in are fantasy. There's something that didn't happen.
More often than not these days.
yeah, that's true. Sometimes it's like another sequel of this series. Where would you go? Cool, fine. Sometimes you do one of those, and a year or two later, that sequel really does come out. It's kind of interesting to see the differences and similarities. One of my favorites is still your Star Wars 10 episode. We get a lot of feedback on the Star Wars 10 episode. I thought it was brilliant, honestly. Even fan fiction, Dan was raving about in one of his episodes.
Awesome.
Thank you, Dan.
Anyways, yes. There are also times where requests are like, go back and remake that one film from the whatever.
Like what went wrong with Wonder Woman 1985? 84.
Yeah.
What went wrong with Wonder Woman in 1984? You guys have to make that movie now. Tweak, do the next draft of the screenplay.
Yeah. And so it's cool. So again, yes, it is. It's a
celebration.
It's a celebration of screenwriting. And whenever you are an artist, whenever you're an artist working for clients, there's always demands that go both directions, whether you're a designer or anything, any kind of gig. And so I also think that at its best, Studio Demands It is also a fun way to exercise that muscle of still being able to create some art, even with sometimes things that are getting fed back in a way that maybe you wouldn't write if you had all the tools in the world.
Which brings us to looking at this cartoon
over
these years, because...
Thank you for hosting my show and segueing in, because I was actually going off the rails there.
Well, it's just a matter of looking at this cartoon, which is so insane, and going, what were they thinking? Well, let's give them the benefit of the doubt, and you are always quick to go, oh, that's a thing from the game. They're actually referencing this. They're actually referencing that. And my curiosity, before we get into any further about the 2 episodes we watched, is, Jim, have you seen this cartoon before?
Yeah.
You have. You actually watched it.
I don't know if I've watched all of it, but I remember watching it when it was airing.
Wow.
Whoa.
I'm an old man.
Look at this man.
No, I think we're all pretty dang close to the same age.
Yeah,
I remember catching it once or twice by accident on a Friday because I turned the TV on at the right time. And I think I was a little scared by it back then, actually.
I wanted more of it because I didn't know you had mentioned as we were setting up and stuff, like the schedule that it had, and you weren't cognizant enough of schedules
as a small child
to find it.
Yeah,
I wasn't either. I was like, when is Zelda going to be on?
Right.
I got enough Mario here. Yep. When is Zelda going to be on? Because I thought it was a show paired like Looney Tunes or one of those where it was 2 episodes.
Yes.
Well, and it usually was. It was 2 episodes in an episode.
Yep.
But I always thought it was Mario and Zelda. You'd get one of each, but it wasn't.
For some reason, it was Mario on Monday, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and then the Friday was the Zelda episode. And I think also weirdly, even though it was the Zelda cartoon episodes, it still had the headers and the mids with the Mario Brother live action actors.
Yes, it did. Yeah.
A little weird.
Yep.
But
I'm
that's what it was.
the show.
Yeah, that's what it was. So I will say, Jim, something that you probably haven't been privy to yet is that TC and I have been on a little bit of an emotional journey with this show.
Okay.
The first time we watched it, and I do think the show has changed a little bit as it's developed through the season.
Or we've been beaten into submission.
Well, and that's kind of the journey we're on. We're trying to figure out. The first episode, Excuse Me, Princess Part 1 from 4 years ago on season 5 or 4 of AZP or whatever it was, we were like, this is blasphemy, this is terrible, oh my gosh, it's so inappropriate, look at Link is gaslighting left and right, and Zelda has no agency, and how could we, is this what we were teaching our children back then? and the first full episode was us like really processing it. It was actually pretty intense. We laughed a little bit here and there, but it was like, what? This is what was wrong with TV, and this is why we have problems in the world. All right, fine.
Wow.
You
guys got up on your pulpit.
Maybe I was leading it a little bit more, but I think we both had we definitely noticed some really, I guess we just, it's been a couple decades, and maybe that is what TV was back then.
Mm-hmm.
Then we watched the next year, and we watched the next 3 episodes, and we were like, oof, boof, still pretty bad. But then we were kind of thinking to ourselves, like, I don't know, it wasn't as bad. Like, Link wasn't as weird. Link wasn't as cringe. And then we kind of got to the one with Dan or something like that, and we were...
Zelda had actual...
Agents,
she took charge, and then there's a little bit of like retroactive thinking going, I guess she's always been... Not always, but she does take the initiative more often than Link does. Link does a lot of like, I guess I'll be the hero.
Yeah.
Kiss.
He spends his whole... Just break everything, TC. It's okay. If you don't mind, just
I'm
bump
so
into
mad
all...
at the show!
Just knock over all the Zelda things on these shelves. Here, I'll put it here. No, it's perfectly fine. Actually, I got to redo a lot of this. But anyway, so thank you for knocking half of it down.
You're
No,
welcome.
Totally joking. One thing fell. One joy coming.
I'm not joking.
Jim's giving me a dirty look.
Yes.
So-
I ground the podcast to a halt.
So with all that said, though, Jim,
Excuse me, princess.
we've been kind of getting a little lighter on the show every time we watch, to the point where when we watched this time, I think we were kind of like, classic Link. You know what I mean? And so it's been weird for us. So you did watch it as a kid,
Sure, yeah.
rewatching it as an adult, and I can't tell if these episodes were tamer or a little bit more well-rounded or a little sillier.
Well, I think we got one of each. I think
Okay,
one
let's
was
do
a
it.
little stronger than the other because there's the 2 episodes we watched.
Yeah.
What were the titles on them?
Let's see if I remember
Hitch in
correctly. It
the-
was A Hitch in the Works,
Yeah.
and then Fairies in the Spring.
Fairies in Spring. And I don't know. I think they're as equally uneven as some of them are because you point out Hitch in the Works. The hitch doesn't even happen until 10 minutes in.
Yeah.
How did the Hitch in the Works start?
It
was it the robot?
The robots that
Yeah.
Doof.
His
there
name was
you-
Doof.
Actually, the hitch happens pretty fast. The thing is, it's a double meaning. The robot wasn't working right. There was a hitch in the works.
Yep.
And then
And there was also a hitch in the
and
works.
then Ganon decided, today's the day I need to marry Zelda.
Not for love, strictly for economic
for
reasons.
power.
That's actually what he says. Yeah. It's pretty close, actually. He's like, and then I'll have all the power.
Yeah. So I guess technically the title was there early. They did a parallel, getting married just like a robot actually functioning.
What was your initial kind of emotional? I know TC, we were all kind of talking as we were watching it, but what was your initial takeaway watching something like this again?
Now?
Yeah,
watching
as an
it
adult.
again? Like, man, what was I watching as a kid?
Okay.
Because I remember, like, you're talking about agency and stuff like that. I remember as a kid watching it and being like, Zelda has this stuff together. She doesn't need Link. I want to see her go on an adventure.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's what I remember thinking as a kid.
Wow.
Watching it now, I see what you guys are saying, but at the same time, there's also things that are happening there that that it was an adult thinking what would appeal to a child.
Yeah.
Because Link is very much like Tom Sawyer, right? Like he's very much I'm painting a white fence and I don't want to do this. How do I get out of this? And
So
with
clever.
the characters that are available, it's not that he's gaslighting a woman. It's that he's gaslighting whoever's there.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay. Yeah. There was like in the first early episodes, there was borderline assault where he was like
was there?
smooching time and tried to
Smooching
jump on her,
time.
literally jumps on her until she rolls away and stuff like
Uh,
that. But nevertheless, yeah. Anyway,
okay. Well, I guess I wasn't there for that.
your
sexual
point is
assault.
no. I'm bringing that to add context, not to say that you're right or wrong or anything else.
Oh gosh, I don't know how to explain that one away.
Well, I
But,
mean, we couldn't help but notice how ample her butt was drawn in a couple of those.
That's kind
Not
of
to
true.
objectify Zelda, but
She. I think if I probably saw it a few times as an 8-year-old.
I made it weirder than you did.
You
But
did.
if I would have, yeah,
One-upmanship.
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if I could speak to how she's drawn.
You don't have to. I was.
Yeah, no.
But there was one joke about like someone said something like, "Oh, I think maybe she invented yoga pants." I think someone said that.
Yeah, because she was very detailed.
Sure.
but I guess my reaction watching it now was sort of in that context of like children aren't going to pick up these things we're saying like
they just see the flashing, like oh bang bang, oh sword swinging, jumping
and
through the air.
Whole, how about a smooch princess? Like even that doesn't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that actually is toxic for children to see. But I think there's like that registers as, oh yes, boys like girls. And at the very least, he's asking, right?
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
It just not more in. I feel like
what the hell were you watching as a kid?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I guess what I'm saying is a lot of the terrible things that were like, oh my God, this is what we're showing. Kids aren't like, that's not registering to children. I know there are people that argue that it's still sinking in.
Yeah, maybe there's like a subtle or subtext, and we're informing context.
And so maybe that is still definitely a problem. But watching, I didn't think the lesson kids would get is shirking your responsibilities and chores is fun. It's more like, oh, this character feels the way I do about it, and he's a rapscallion, so he's gonna try doing these things. Or maybe I was just a good kid, so I wasn't like, well, I'm not gonna imitate that.
Yeah, I said, instead of like, oh, I'm taking notes. All right, cool.
Yeah.
Interesting. How did you feel about the episode structures?
Oh, I didn't think about that as I was watching. Right now, Hitch in the Works is clearer in my mind.
Yeah,
and I know we were laughing as we were watching it, but honestly, I think structure-wise, it's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
like despite the weird thing, like randomly introducing characters that we've never seen before, but they're all behaving like, oh, they're there every day.
Yeah,
that was a weird thing to do from an adult's perspective of like, we're going to learn a story, but for a kid, just say, okay, yeah, there's a weird castle wizard.
Yeah, and
weird castle wizard we're in. It definitely wasn't in the games. And
that afternoon, or if this was played in the morning, like in recess on the playground, be like, some kid like, I'm gonna play Doof. Well, who's Doof? Oh, did you see the newest episodes? He's an inventor, and then that little kid,
be your robot.
That little and that little kid's gonna come up with a whole explanation for a character we see for all of like 5 minutes, but it's like, oh, he's this like crazy inventor and he makes robots out of material that's it, and they kind of look like, and that little kid energy is going to build out this whole character. So, and
who's to say they wouldn't correlate the old man in the cave with Doof, the wizard character?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's like, are they doing like analogs with that sometimes? The one thing that reminds me about a little bit of structure in introducing things out of nowhere was in the Fairies in the Spring episode. We all noticed that some really convenient plot holes were solved with dialogue in the third act of the 10th minute of the episode.
We haven't seen Sprite for ages.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm back from that vacation I told you about.
That's exactly what she says. I'm back from the vacation and then like another character says, wait, this must be the colony of fairy Sprite has always mentioned. Or something. And it's like, what? That wasn't even set up in the first act or anything like that.
Oh, that's an amazing tool I need to remember if I ever write children's cartoons. Basically gaslighting the audience into thinking, oh, I must have missed that episode.
So she must have talked about it in an episode I didn't see, because this show's not consistently on when I want it to be. So I've missed at least 20. I think probably 20.
I saw the episodes last Friday, and so now this Friday I think I've missed about a week of episodes.
Yeah. Must have happened. I got to watch this for like another year now to catch up.
Yeah, and then also I do remember as a kid, I can't say exactly what age, I kind of remember watching cartoons and not even fully considering a serialness to it.
Oh, sure.
It's just like, this is the cartoon today, and I will watch it. It was really X-Men that was the first one, and probably because we were starting to become like 12-year-olds, that I was really actually starting to track like, oh wait, these episodes connect to each other and stuff like that.
X-Men 96, or the 90s X-Men was one of the first cartoons, at least American cartoons, that did have a linear storyline that it was following. The status quo notion of, just think about this, G.I. Joe, Thundercats, Gummy Bears, like all those shows had the same setup and execution and return to status quo in every single episode, because it's just bad guy do thing to good guy stop bad guy, back to where they were, repeat. And then you don't have to watch in any order. Not really. I recently went back and watched all of DuckTales, all of Darkwing Duck, I'll have Tailspin, and I'll have Gummy Bears. Of those 4, Gummy Bears does not hold up. It's like watching this.
Gummy Bears, I think, was the
no.
first one made out of all of those.
I think so too. Yeah,
Yeah.
It predates all of them, and it was oh no, this is bad.
I
It's
remember thinking
the
Gummy
best thing
Bears,
was the theme song.
Yeah.
really.
Yes.
And then maybe that's all you need as a kid. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll go to break. We'll come back. And we'll dive into some of these a little bit more. We'll talk a little bit more about Fairies in the Spring and maybe some of the other characters.
Mhm.
Okay.
And it's nice to have. I think I can speak for myself, but maybe I can speak for TC and I. It is nice to have a third set of eyes on the show, because otherwise I think it would be 20 minutes of TC and I going like, I don't know, maybe we're just fine with it now.
Maybe.
You know, you watch the prequel trilogy enough and you go, I like it now.
You know what? Jar Jar's not that annoying.
It's really not that bad. All right. We'll go to break. I'll see you all in a little bit. There's no doubt probably going to be a Studio Demands an ad coming up here.
More of us. Uh-oh.
Okay, we are back from the break, and I think we've established a few different ideas. I really appreciate your thoughts, Jim. Let's just kind of blow it open here and talk about whatever we want to. I think we've discussed, so maybe a very microscopic quick recap. In A Hitch in the Works, Link meets a new character named Doof. It's down in the dungeon. Doof is really good-ish at making robots. Actually, that was an episode where Zelda was kind of throwing it at Link. She misunderstood the situation and told him that he was wrong, actually, which was a little bit weird and unhealthy.
Well, and she wasn't going to fall for his antics anymore, right? Suggesting
so she was overcompensating.
He essentially referring to you've done this one too many times. You've cried wolf too much. I'm not going to fall for it.
100%. Because what happens is some moblins come in and attack Link in the dungeon. Let's just say he defeats them. They get zip zapped out of there. And then he's on the ground with a mess. She comes in and said, I told you to clean this place up. And he said, no, I was fighting moblins. And yeah, she says, I'm done with your cry wolf tactics. You're absolutely right.
Because she catches him plotting to make moblins so he doesn't have to do work.
Well, immediately after.
Yeah.
So then he decides, okay, well, I'll show her that moblins attacked by having the robot guy make fake ones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll show her it happened. I'll show her that it does happen by making fake ones.
Yeah.
She isn't too far away, overhears that and says, well, I'll show him. I won't be scared of those stupid fake moblins. And then, of course, what happens is real moblins attack again.
Yep.
They steal Zelda for the wedding.
Yep.
Link thinks they're the robots. She thinks they're the robots. Actually, they both think they're the robots at first.
Yeah.
And then she goes, it's a little too... They take her away, and he goes, wait, what? And he doesn't even know it until Doof shows up with an actual robot moblin. It's like, here, this is the best it is so far.
Yep.
Link puts it together, realizes he's got to go save Zelda, so goes to Ganon's lair, where Ganon has decided to have a necklace of truth put on Zelda. Was it necklace of truth?
Not truth. I don't remember
Control.
exactly
Necklace
what
of
it's
control or
called.
something, basically.
Yeah.
And it basically makes her do anything he says. And he basically says, okay, you're going to marry me now. And then Link shows up, and I got a little gray on the fight there. There was, Link was going against, was that the one with the Gleeok? No, Gleeok was in the springs.
Right.
Gleeok was in the water one.
Yeah.
But the fight ensues.
He beats Ganon.
Yep.
Puts him in the gem.
Link, I got really excited when he bomb shield hopped to get to the dungeon.
And then just soared through the air.
Yep. Which my favorite part about that is that 30 years later, that is a pro strat in Breath of the Wild to do. And you can actually send yourself across the entire map. If you throw a bomb down, do your shield surfing, land on it just right, you just get launched across the map.
That's amazing.
So, and it's just a complete coincidence.
No, I think we're not the only fans of this cartoon.
The Breath of the Wild developers are like, you know what we got to do?
I feel like I have bags under my eyes. I'm like, yeah, I'm a fan now. I'm a fan.
Any major takeaways from that episode, or how did it actually end then? He was just like, did he ask for a kiss at the end?
Yeah.
No, he's not asking anymore. Now he's just saying, kiss me.
Yeah.
Well, to Link's credit, he did remove the necklace of control before requesting a kiss.
Yes, that's true. It's true. Noble guy.
Noble, yes.
Well, Doof shows up and interrupts them just for the kiss is going to happen.
That's what it was.
I made another robot.
And then Link says something like, every time. I don't think they've actually kissed. We'll have to see. There's 2 more episodes left of this show. We'll have to see if they actually kiss
Next
at the
year.
You
end.
can't kiss in a cartoon.
Maybe they never do.
Yeah. Non-repeatable behavior. As far as takeaways from that episode, it was the thing that took me by surprise was we're just introducing a new character here. Like they've existed this whole time, but as we discussed, there's sort of a rhyme and reason behind that of like a kid doesn't care.
A kid doesn't care.
Mm-hmm.
We did learn that it would appear based on the credits that all of these episodes were written by the same duo. I believe it was a husband and wife. But it was a man and woman, according to the credits.
Nintendo, if you've learned anything from your 80s and 90s adaptations, stop letting husband and wives run your productions.
You're making a reference to the Mario
The Mario Brothers movies and also a husband and wife.
Indeed. I know it is weird because we're kind of doing both those episodes, and sometimes some of these facts are kind of mixing with our conversation.
Sorry, together.
No, it's true. Even even as I said it just now, I was like, is that right? Did I get that right? Because we have all the other conversations we've had in the last 48 hours as we've been making all these podcasts. But anyway, yeah, cool. Well, let's move on to Fairies in the Spring, and then we can do a kind of our final thoughts about the whole thing. So Fairies in the Spring, the king returns. Was it your first time experiencing the king, at least as an adult?
Yep.
Any thoughts? I hate to put you on the spot
Nope.
like that. We were surprised by the king's behavior in previous episodes.
Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah. Because he's like, go kiss my daughter.
He doesn't sound like that.
Go kiss my daughter.
Yeah, he's kind of like one of these. He's kind of like an up like he's that 80s trope of like, I'm the one in charge after all.
Well, the medieval times were a different time in which fathers sold off their daughters for cows and things like that.
That's true.
We called them dowries, and that made it okay.
Should have called them cowries.
Only in certain situations.
Yeah. Yeah.
How's it gonna work? Goat trees? It just doesn't.
Yeah, you can't name it after the thing every time.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah,
My bad.
so
Let's talk about the water park the king wanted.
Watries doesn't work.
No.
But anyways, he is excited to build a water park.
Yeah.
Which
we got to meet Hyrulean guards.
So what was really
and
funny
soldiers.
is, remember at the top of the episode or the end of the first, one of us was saying something about like, where's the rest of the people that live in Hyrule? You never see the people in the kingdom.
And then sure enough.
And sure, that episode had a whole crew of people building a water park.
And a whole bunch of people at the water park.
Also, not fun fact, I didn't share this when we were watching, but the way the water park was drawn and depicted looked like fun to me. I was kind of like, I'd go there. There was a series of pools with different slides going to the different pools. Like I was like, yeah, that looks like a blast.
I can't tell you how many times I've had the hypothetical of if you had an endless source of money, what would you do? That Jim has said without hesitation, build a water park.
Yeah, seriously, this isn't a thing.
Every time.
Yeah, build a water park.
Build a water park.
We had way back in like season 2 or 3 of this show, another Zelda podcast. Dan from Fanfiction was with me, and we did a top 10 list of like real world fan projects that would have Zelda themes, and of course a water park was one of them. A real world water park.
Inspired by this episode.
By this episode. I didn't even know. I didn't even know that water parks were so fluent in the Zelda.
But you're not. The water park
reminds
looked,
me of the joke I made.
The water park looked amazing.
Yeah.
And like you're right. It does look like a great place. Like wow, it's so extensive, so elaborate. Like it was a great looking location.
Yeah.
So I don't mind setting it up. We're watching the show, and the water park's flooding and going up and down and all the rest, and we were talking about the intricacies of the water park, and Jim, you made an excellent observation.
Excellent observation.
I said, well, clearly this is the basis for all of the water levels in the Zelda games.
Yeah. You're like, we didn't realize it, but the water dungeons are just these water parks.
Completely
abandoned water parks.
Completely recontextualized. Completely recontextualizes all the water dungeons from this point on. You're gonna look at those water dungeons and go, yeah, that was probably a theme.
Water dungeon in Twilight Princess. Who lives here?
Yeah.
Water dungeon in Ocarina of Time. Who lives
here?
No
one lived there. It was a water park.
They were playing there.
You did it, Jim.
The king specifically. The king was specifically.
Only I get the water park.
So the water park's getting built, and then actually it got a little dark, thematically at least. Some monsters spawn out of the water. I forgot how they came to be.
So I thought it was very interesting that they incorporated the source of the water. They're like, we found a spring. We
That's
found
right.
a natural spring, and we're building this water park up around it. And the spirits weren't in there. I think it was literally Ganon showed up and was all like, I'm magicking the water into monsters.
Yes.
Um,
That's right. There was like elemental
Yeah.
water baddies. I forgot about
Yeah.
that because those aren't really in the games.
Yeah, no.
Excellent.
Good talk.
Full stop.
However, there were a couple monsters in the games that showed up. That's where we did get our Gleeok with the 3 heads.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
And I was
yes,
actually
yes.
thinking about it in hindsight when we were watching. I think I was like, "Oh, that's Gleeok from level 3 or level 4 or whatever of the first Zelda game." But I actually, if we want to get real, push the glasses up the nose.
I do want to get
Gleeok is a bad guy again in a later level. Maybe let's just say 6 or 7 in the first game, and its increased ability is that its heads fly around.
Oh,
And
in the
Gleeok already showed up in this show in like episode 3 or 4. It was the one with the dark-haired gal from another land.
Yeah.
The kiss the frog one or whatever it was. And its heads didn't fly around. So Gleeok has come back later in the series as a powered up version.
So what you're saying is this is not an episodic show. This is a serialized show.
I think that this would imply it.
Whoa.
Yeah,
And Nintendo, if you've learned anything from this production, you should let a husband and wife make.
We're the Mario Brothers. Okay. Let's see. Okay, I'm trying to bring it all back. Okay, we had Gleeok, we had the water, there was things. But one thing happens in the episode that does start to get dark. Great music in this episode too. This is where they were actively playing the orchestrated versions of the dungeon music from the very first game. The king gets grabbed by the water monsters, gets pulled down into the water.
Ooh.
Link very seriously jumps into the water, dives in, tries to find him, comes back up. Zelda says, "Where's my dad?" or "Where's my father?" The one time she said father, not daddy.
Not daddy.
I think what it is when she's talking to the king, she says daddy. And when she's talking about the king.
It's a pet name. It's a pet name. So you wouldn't say that to someone else.
Yeah. And so she says, "Where's my father?" And
right.
Where's my daddy? I just thought of dumb
right,
jokes.
You wouldn't go, "Where's my smoochums? Smoochums, where are you?"
Yeah. Some would, but they would have issues.
Yeah.
And
have you seen my smoochums?
yeah, right. So then Link dives down into the water, can't find the king, and comes up and kind of for the cartoon, kind of seriously is like, he's not down there. I don't know. And you're like, ooh. I mean, we know the king didn't die, but it was like, what?
Drowned a man?
Did the king die? And they don't know what to do. And then that's Dan and I. Actually.
Sorry, shouldn't that be?
You're being you're just loving the stuff behind you.
I'm distracted. This is bad audio. You should be doing this.
This is great. It's fine.
I don't remember how they got to Ganon's inner sanctum.
Oh, there was the tree hole. The tree. It was like just a staircase in a tree.
Yeah.
Remember that? They just walked right down into it.
Yeah.
So they're like, he's not in the pool. Let's just go in the tree.
Yeah.
Okay.
They walked down the tree steps and kind of got to Ganon's, area or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And Ganon does not have a castle, but Ganon sometimes takes the main castle. So Ganon's down in his lair, and now I'm getting gray.
That's right. I remember because we were saying so many comments during it and stuff. I remembered thinking, oh, that's convenient that Ganon's lair is beneath this water park.
Oh, wait. No, they don't go to Ganon's land. I'm imagining that from the other episode.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
Works, yeah.
I think we're like building our own Berenstein Bears situation.
I don't think Ganon's in this episode, is he?
No, he is because he summons
the water monsters in the beginning.
Yeah.
But what happens is they go down the stairs because maybe even that's when Navi shows up. Not Navi. That's when Sprite shows up from her vacation and says, "I think I know what's going on.
That's right.
Follow me." And they walk down the stairs and go into an alternate dimension where all the sprites and the fairies live.
That's right. I was getting the two reversed. I was like, they're all going to end up in the bulb.
I know.
Right? The big glass
Which
thing.
happened in
That
the
was the
episode.
first one.
And you can imagine, we used to do 3 of these episodes per episode.
Oh, no.
And you can see why we've brought it down to 2. Because they were sometimes in episode 2 or 3 of Excuse Me, Princess, TC and I would be like, wait, was that the unicorn episode or was that the... Like, we just watched these. But
Should have taken better notes.
I took some notes, but I don't even have... But as a professional, as a working professional, I did not bring the notes with me to the recording.
I never do.
Yeah. Anyways, so they go down and they learn that the fairies, the water source of this spring is actually somehow, they didn't really graphically show it, but somehow is being pulled from the fairy kingdom. And the fairies, wait, did the fairies send the monsters and it wasn't Ganon?
No, I thought it was just naturally water, and could have swore Ganon made them monsters.
Ganon might have
attack.
But then I remember the king saying something like, "Look, the king fairy sent the monsters because
he didn't know they
didn't know we were taking the water."
He didn't know they were monsters. He didn't think they were monsters. He thought it was just wonderful water park fun.
Whee!
After the king cleared it up.
Maybe. I guess I'm gonna have to watch this again.
Also, this is a testament. Like the three of us, grown adults, sat and watched with our eyes. Like we looked. We weren't doing anything else. We watched these episodes, and this is how forgettable they are. What are you pulling up?
I'm gonna look it up. See what
I think what happened was I think maybe Ganon did Gleeok or something like that. But I'm remembering now the fairy king I think sent the water monsters, which is why they're not canonical, which is why they're not one of the bad guys, one of Ganon's bad guys. Thinking who's stealing our water. Once he learned that it was the king who was stealing the water, and the king said, "We'll only take as much as we need, and we'll recycle the water with magic." Then the fairy king was like, "I'm cool with it. Just one ask: can I attend this water park?"
It's
coming back to me now.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And then of course we get a fun little montage. Everybody goes back to the water park, and everybody's sliding down the slides.
Yay! And
the
Zelda almost kisses Link, and she almost kisses him. He doesn't even. I think he might have like kissed, and she's like, "Okay," and Sprite comes between them.
That's right. That's right. Kissing. So we got 2 episodes left of this show. Maybe there is character growth? Is there not? What's our?
I'm gonna say probably not.
I mean,
from the sound of it, basically, it is teaching a toxic trait, and that is persistence. Persistence will wear them down, and they'll like you after you ask enough and do enough favors and be nice and all that. Because I learned it from somewhere.
I learned it from watching Zelda.
And also a couple episodes ago, TC and I started giving the writers the benefit of the doubt, and we realized, this is also just kind of, unfortunately, was the language of a lot of TV shows back in the 80s. That's just what kind of where culture was. A lot of that stuff was perceived not only to be okay, but perceived to be kind of entertaining and funny. Like, oh, look at the rapscallion doing the thing that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
All right, I was right. Ganon isn't even in that episode.
Really?
It was the fairies who created the water monsters to protect their vanishing water. They didn't.
So when we go back to the playground and you play Doof and I play Water Monster and you play Fairy King, we're gonna get this all wrong.
Yeah. We are.
Yeah. But it's okay. The stories will live on in the minds of children.
Yep. Sprite's sister explained that someone was draining their spring, which was the reason they were creating the water creatures. King Harkinian.
Oh, I just realized why Sprite had to be on a vacation, because she would have figured out what was going on
immediately.
Right from the
yeah.
Oh, shoot, I already saw this. Well, let's put her on that vacation she keeps talking about.
All right, I'm back from that vacation I was on.
I don't know if it was entirely important for me to figure that out, but
it was.
It was.
Jim and I were like eye locked, trying to we were desperately clinging to each other. Like, are we rewriting history in reality right now? Oh my gosh. Okay, so any other thoughts about your experience, TC, doing this for 4 years now?
I have definitely softened on this show. Like I understand what it is now. Yeah. Like it's come to the point where I accept it for its badness, and I do think the revelation of Doof, and right here in the moment thinking about, no, a kid would see that and want to be Doof on the playground, and would build the whole history of this character off the top of their head with their imagination. And so I think this show came from at least an attempt. Like, this wasn't something that they're dumping out with any sort of malice. They're like, kids love this stuff. Let's just make this stuff. Let's just make it. We don't know the lore enough or whatnot,
and maybe there wasn't enough lore to pull from.
Yeah. There's 2 games at this point.
Yeah,
and so they were making up as they were going along.
And the first game is a paragraph.
Yeah.
When it comes to lore, and the second game is almost nothing. When you die in the second game, there's that famous red screen of the silhouette of the pig of Ganon going, and it says game over. But you don't even know what that means unless you read the instruction manual, which lets you know that because you've died, eventually the monsters take over and Ganon returns. Oh, that's what it doesn't say game over; it says Ganon returns.
Yeah,
and like all that lore is in the instruction manual. You don't know any of it. There's really nothing to read, and so that's what they were working with.
I still don't think this show is good. I wouldn't.
Well, right, because even on making a children's show, there's even further constraints, not just story ones. Like, because I'd be like, well, no, you embrace all the monsters, you actually send them on adventures and stuff, and that's a budget for a show that's for an older audience than they're initially aiming for.
We need to reuse as many assets as often as possible.
Yeah, right. So they're not going to incorporate all the monsters that little Jim is going to want to see. They're going to try to tell these adventures with these 4 characters.
It was the one thing that's impossible to ignore is the weird accuracy of the names of all the baddies. For the most part, the depiction of the baddies, the ones that are canonical,
Sure.
The sound effects are like straight out of the game.
Yep.
It's nuts. It was so much. It was to the point where actually I remember this when they were in the sewers, maybe going to the fairyland or something. The big old crab came out, and I was like, "It's Goma!"
Like 8-year-old you came out.
Yeah, right. Like you can call these characters out; they're that accurate, and for
That's
the most
good.
part, the way the references are spot on. So then I feel like maybe what happened was, maybe it's a little bit of that list syndrome again. You get the list, you get the references right, and for all intents and purposes, to keep this part of the conversation moving, Nintendo doesn't care. Nintendo's contracted the 12 episodes or the 13 episodes. Make the show, because that's just how all shows were, because shows were just the cartoons were just commercials. You know, we were talking about G.I. Joe and all the rest. You know what I mean?
Their care may have extended to make sure you reference these things.
Yeah.
Like, and they listed the monsters, gave them pictures of the monsters, or even like
The sprites.
even saying video footage might have been a bit much for the late 80s.
They took a Polaroid.
Or at least artist renditions or something.
Right, like I'm thinking like Nintendo. Yeah, they had concept art, so they may have had stuff like that to be like, have this monster be in there.
Here's a fun example. In the first time Gleeok showed up, all 3 heads had dialogue. They talked. Gleeok did not talk in this episode, and also was drawn a little different too. But that's probably just different, contracts and stuff like that. I think you're right. I think Nintendo at most was like, include these things. These are the items we want to explore. Make sure, and it's kind of funny. Wouldn't it be funny if Nintendo did have quality control a little bit on this show, and what the game designer was like, well, we have to make sure that the sound effect is correct, and like they're not really doing character analysis, branding assessment. You know what I mean? And that might have been where we were at back then. Actually, I'm realizing.
Yeah. So I'm not loathing watching this. There is fun to be had, and just even we'll talk about like this. So I don't begrudge anyone who's not seen this. I'm like, oh, you missed out. But occasionally you're going to find, especially newer Zelda fans, who might not even know this exists.
Yeah.
You might run across someone who's never held a Nintendo 64 controller.
That happens.
That's not out of the realm of possibility. That there is a segment of people of a certain era that, oh, the Excuse Me Princess of absolutely. But there's going to be a couple decades of people who only have discovered this cartoon courtesy of this.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of there's some fun in that.
I agree. I think just like when we examine all the different Zelda games, I mean, we've had entire episodes where we discuss Zelda's agency just through the Zelda games over the past 40 years. And what you're really examining is culture, not really necessarily the games. And in some ways, I think what we're looking at here is what was entertainment, what was Saturday morning cartoons back then, even though it wasn't Saturday mornings. What was that experience like?
Pre-internet too.
Pre-internet,
pre-millennial cynicism as well.
The budgets were way lower.
Because, honestly, there's some of you out there who listen who remember He-Man and Thundercats fondly.
But if you watch it,
yeah, I'm not saying it's like this show. This show is coming from a very shoestring budget, but those shows are silly and repetitive, and they're fun to your 8-year-old memory of it. But if you tried to show an 8-year-old now He-Man, they're gonna go, "What? No." If you try to show an adult who's never watched He-Man now, they're going to go, no. It's a moment in time that captured you in a moment in time, and so you hold it beloved. That's just the nature of literally what nostalgia is. You
He-Man and Thundercats, they don't know it. Silverhawks though, that's perfection.
Yeah, Jim's right on.
I remember thinking Thundercats was just the coolest dang thing on the face of the planet, and I barely watched the show.
And
I think I would
wrong.
I'd see the commercial, or I'd catch 1 or 2 episodes because you're kidding, you don't actually know how scheduling works.
Yeah.
And just that was enough to imprint on me, thinking like, oh, that's a super cool thing.
It's a very elevated animation, especially compared to what we're seeing in Zelda. It's Japanese animation that was financed by American companies. So the 80s hand-drawn animation of a certain segment is it just looks good. Snarf, snarf, that's annoying and all that. But you can watch the GIFs of even that era of animation and go, damn, that's cool. Chitara doing that flipping. Ooh. Just watch the opening credits of any animated show from that era. That's going to be the best version of the cartoon.
That's true.
I just had a thought. I was realizing that the worst version of cartoons that are commercials from the 80s is that formula. Bad guy does a thing, go do the thing, get around. It's the 3 beats, the same 3 beats every time. Maybe it's a different, sometimes it's even the exact same bad guy. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
Very rarely would you get an episode that was a little bit different. When it comes to this show being just 13 commercials, and as much as we can kind of assess and be like, 5 of these episodes include characters and storylines that aren't even canon. I don't know. They were writing stories. Like they were
coming up with something.
Trying to come up with at least a concept that was a little, each episode a little different. And maybe I'm giving this show too much credit. Maybe I'm getting soft, but I don't know.
Well, the thing I found weird about it is most of those shows were always honestly about selling merchandise.
Right.
There wasn't merchandise for this show.
Yeah,
I imagine it's just trying to sell the video games.
The game, yeah.
Right? Which also, anyone who's going to be watching the show honestly already has the game or is familiar with it. Because thinking about it, the thing that was so exciting to me as a kid seeing this was knowing that they took this video game that I thought was cool and they were showing me the stories. I wasn't having to play through them or read them or like I was getting all the stories in between or before or after. Like this was amazing that there's whole other world from just the game that I played.
I see.
That's all.
I love it. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think you're right. And I think that is, I remember kind of thinking it was an extension as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious to see what the last 2 episodes offer us that won't give us more insight. It's a year from now that we'll come back to this. Yeah. So I'm the adventure's nearing its conclusion, and I'm wondering like, what more will I have to say watching 2 more episodes?
Yeah, I know. We might be running out of things to say, I think, a little bit, but I think we'll have a final thesis on it all next year. It'll probably be the 3 of us again next year because if schedules go correctly, it's me visiting the 2 of you at the Studio Demands It studio.
That's right. Yeah.
And also, I was thinking about this.
That's true. That's a real thing.
I don't know how the timing is going to work. I don't know when release dates are going to happen, but I realized that once we're done with this, the next episode has to be the 3 of us discussing the upcoming Zelda film, doing like a review of the Zelda film.
Oh, yeah.
Episode.
Absolutely.
Just seeing what it means, how it all came together, and all the rest. Not a studio demands it, not a rewrite it, not a whatever. Just a. We've never been able to do a review episode on AZP as far as like a piece of content like that. This is the closest we get is with these excuse me things. I mean, we review the games, but we're not. Yeah. We really just kind of talk about them when we quote it. We don't even call them review episodes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, I think that's kind of where this goes from there, and I can't wait.
It's weird. It's episode 4 of this, episode 5, and they just introduced a new character. Like, where does Jim guy come? And they're talking like he's been here the whole time.
Thanks for being back on your vacation. From your vacation, I'm just so
I
glad.
had a wonderful time.
Well, that's great. Well, anyways, I think we're going to get going here. You can find let's start with Studio Demands It, actually, TC. If people want to find Studio Demands It.
Yes, thank you for asking.
Certainly click in the show notes of this episode. Yeah. But otherwise, if they're just out there on the internet, what can they do?
Thank you for asking. Jim?
I wondered why you said it so quickly. And then I kind of messed up your rhythm. I'm so sorry.
You can find us at studiodemandsit.com, where all of our podcasts are posted as podcast episodes are posted, along with finding it where you find any of your favorite podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this season you guys are really like everywhere now. It's on all the small distributors and everything, which is pretty cool.
You can find us on Instagram at Studio Demands It. You can also get us on YouTube and TikTok, where we post video content that we don't typically have on the show. And we also have a Patreon for some your fans are very familiar with what the Patreon offers as far as like bonus content is concerned.
Yeah, but you guys do that too. You do full commentaries on films and stuff.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, our bonus stuff is full movie commentaries. If you'd like to visit the Patreon, David did Super Mario Bros with us as a commentary track. And we also have extended episodes, and we're also
and we can you can also join in the conversation on Discord. We have a Discord server you can get to from our website studiodemandsit.com. There's a link for Discord at the top to join the server, and also on Reddit at our subreddit at r/studiodemandsit, and come hang out with us there.
Fantastic. I'm going to keep it real simple for AZP. I'm Raptor Paint on all the socials. Or do you want to do personals or anything like that?
You're good.
Yeah, cool. Love it. Well,
Oh, that's a joke we haven't done in a long time.
That is.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at TC's Big Head. And if you want to reach Jim, you go to me and I will find him for you.
Yeah.
For Another Zelda podcast is Another Zelda Pod on X and Another Zelda Podcast on everything else. And really, the easiest thing is just go to our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com, where you can get links to all of our episodes and our blog posts and a little bit of merch. We got to start merch for you guys. We just got to do it.
I think so too. We've discussed it before.
I think we take the AZP model and bring it over to studio.
Okay.
All right, cool. Anyways, that's good enough for now. We'll see you all in the next episode. The next episode, if the schedule maintains, will be an episode in which I and Lego influencer Hoke Bricks are going to be building the Lego Deku tree, and then I guess kind of reviewing what the build experience was like. And I'm very, very excited about that. That gentleman's name is Eric, and they'll be coming in from, I think they actually live in Wisconsin right now. Hot take, I think they just bought a house in Kenosha.
Whoa.
But that's a complete coincidence.
Hometown
Kenosha
love.
is the hometown where TC and I grew up. And anyways, well, we're going to get together and sit right here at this table and have, they're going to build the Breath of the Wild version of the tree. I'm going to build the Ocarina of Time version of the tree. And we're going to have them right here on the table in front of us and talk about the kits. And that'll be the next episode. It'll be tons of fun. Woo. And then, of course, the episode after that, Katie and I will be back. I think we're doing a Gerudo episode or something like that. Anyways, the both of you, this has been an absolute blast. These last couple of days we've been hanging out, making all the different shows. I'm so happy to have you on an official Another Zelda podcast episode, Jim. Thank you for your kind of refreshing thoughts on the show, too.
Sure. I feel they were a bit apologistic, but
no, it's nice.
You're welcome.
Part of the conversation. I really, really appreciate it. And, of course, TC, as always, it's wonderful to have you here.
I love this.
And I guess there it is. Let's get out of here. We have behind the curtain, we have a little cookout tonight.
Yeah, that's right.
We're closing up shop here in about 5 minutes.
I didn't get to say my favorite Zelda thing.
What's your favorite Zelda
in
thing?
Breath of the Wild, the chameleon lizard monster guys. That's my favorite thing. That's my favorite monster in Zelda.
The Lizalfos?
I'll believe you.
Great. I'm so happy you shared that, Jim. Thank you.
I feel good about myself.
It's out there. It's on the internet now. It's been established. Yeah, that's great. The chameleon thing. The ones that have they spit water, or they?
No. They're huge and they carry spears and stuff. They're lizard monsters, but they specifically look like chameleons. They have the eyes that.
Yeah, in Breath of the Wild. Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they're scary stuff. There's water versions and fire versions.
Do you want me to pat him on the head for you while you're talking to him like that?
Please patronize me a little more.
Well, that's cool. Thank you for sharing.
This is the only time I'm going to get to talk about Zelda.
Nah, so look, you're going to be back next year and the next season. But anyway, all right, cool. All right, we're going to get out of here. Everyone have a great week. We're going to get to this cookout. Actually, it's kind of fun behind the curtain. It sounds like Katie, my co-host, is going to be able to show up, and total random coincidence, Mr. Dan McCoy. Yeah, that's them right there. Yeah, there's Alpha.
There's Alpha.
They're great.
Dan McCoy
is in town with his wife for a totally different reason. Randomly texted me this morning. Dan from Fanfiction is going to show up, and all of us are going to hang out. You've obviously met Dan before. Jim, you'll meet him for the first time.
I will.
And my girlfriend Michelle's showing up. We're going to have a nice little cookout, and I can't wait to end this kind of hurrah of producing 4 or 5 episodes over the last 2 days.
6-5 vacation time.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little 6-5 party.
Yeah.
We just need to get Jacob and Rebecca over here from another Pokemon podcast.
Yeah.
They're in Michigan. No, they're actually down south. It doesn't matter. We'll see y'all in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.